Whatever money you save, the first month's savings goes into buying something for yourself. Something you wouldn't normally buy. Do you love giving the bank money? No, nobody wants to give the bank extra money, yet we unintentionally do this all the time. I mean, this is going to be about cash flow optimization, which is how do you keep more of what you make, especially when it comes to the 3 R's. The 3 R's are restructuring, renegotiating, and reallocating when it comes to your loans. And what that really means in common language is more money in your pocket, less in theirs. So if that sounds like a good plan, stay tuned. We're going to dive through into this right away. Restructuring loans, we first want to have you look at all the different loans that you have, and I want you to apply the cash flow index. The cash flow index is take every loan's balance and divide it by the minimum monthly payment. So what do you have to pay on it every month? Loan balance divided by minimum monthly payment is going to give you your cash flow index. Your cash flow index tells you whether this is a cash hog, meaning it's requiring a lot of your cash flow in relationship to a low balance, or something that's not a cash cow, using the farm analogy. That just doesn't work totally, but it's like at least it's not, a cow turd. So that's the problem with low cash flow indexes. It's just they've got a lot of money going out of your pocket to pay back a loan, which is great for the institution, not so good for you. So whether it's your car loan, student loan, mortgage, business line of credit, any of that kind of stuff, just take the balance, divide it by the monthly payment. Now, a number less than 50 is a cash hog, a very inefficient loan. So if it's an efficient loan, that's where we want to look at restructuring. Restructuring could be refinancing a mortgage and getting a tax-deductible interest rate to pay off a non-tax-deductible loan like a credit card or any other type of loan like a business loan that might have a really high payment or higher interest rate. So that's one way to restructure. Another thing that most people don't consider in restructuring is sometimes people have a paid-off car, and car loans are some of the cheapest loans out there. Let's talk about why they're a cheap loan and how to get the best interest rates. It's the 4 C's that help you with your cash flow. The first thing is having a good credit score. A good credit score or an extraordinary credit score is anything 760 and above. Now, there's things you can do to improve your credit score. You could increase your lines of credit on a credit card or home equity line of credit so that you have less utilization rate. If you've charged less than 20% of what's available to you, that's going to help your credit score. Maybe you can go up to maybe 30%. Another thing is you could check for errors. Maybe they have your middle name as your first name. Maybe they have the wrong address. Maybe they simply are showing no available balance on a card that you actually have available balance, but they're not reporting the upper line. That actually lowers your utilization rate, like I talked about before. So look for those errors. Over a lifetime, you have basically an 80% chance that you're going to have an error on your credit report. Now, that could be significant because if you have a 719 instead of a 720 and you're using an FHA loan, well, it's going to cost you on a $300,000 loan about $6,000 in closing costs to buy the same rate over one measly point. So 1 point can mean a lot of money in your pocket. And having the right credit score not only saves you on your interest, it can save you on your insurance policies. Yes, they look at your car insurance and your homeowner's insurance to determine your rates based upon your credit score. So improve your credit score. Look for the errors. Make sure to increase your lines so you're not over 20% on your utilization rate. And if you have one credit card, you might even consider getting 3 credit cards so that you never go above 20%. Now, I say that with a word of caution. If you just spend every dollar that comes in your life, credit cards should never be used. But if you aren't using too much of them and you're paying them off over time, having more than one can actually help you with your credit score. So look for errors, look for utilization rate, and obviously paying on time. If you go past 30 days, they can report a negative on your credit report. Now, if you want to get that removed because there was a mistake or it's old, make sure you get a letter of deletion before removing that. These are just a few credit tips that can help out, but get that credit score up. I call that credit dressing because once it's dressed up, you can get better interest rates and better insurance rates. The second C is collateral. We're talking about a car loan right now. That collateral of the car or a mortgage, which has the collateral of a home, can lower your interest rates because you're adding more layers of protection for the institution. But again, if you're responsible with that paying, restructuring this can mean going from a 10% credit card to refinancing your car and getting 1.9 or 2.9% on a car loan for a car that was paid off. And another thing that improves your credit score is an amortized car loan. An amortized car loan might say, hey, I have a 5-year loan, and if I make my payments on time, every time I make that on-time payment, it helps my credit score. If you pay that off, it can still help your credit score as well, but it doesn't hurt your credit score having an amortized loan like having a maxed out credit card would, because it's not a loan that's, where you can pull money out, put money back down. It's a one-time thing and you make that payment. So getting a restructuring with a mortgage or a car loan can make a big difference in your interest rate, therefore putting more money in your pocket. Now, the third thing we're talking on these 4 C's, we talk credit score first, we talk collateral second. The third is the right connections. They're just certain banks. Like I have a friend, Eric, who had a winery, a vineyard, and he was like, he's having the hardest time getting a mortgage on it. And the reason is because it's unique property and they're selling wine from it. But there was one specific credit union that looked at vineyards as their main place to finance. And simply by having that right connection, he's able to get half the interest rate that any other institution was wanting to give him because they understood the property. We've seen this. We had this Dr. Care that we were working with, and she was just going to finance at a local regional bank. We ended up getting her a relationship at a private bank, and instead of paying 4.6% on her property that she was buying for her practice, she's able to get 3%. So 3% versus 4.6%, we were talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over 25 years. A massive difference with the right connection. Now, the final C is good cash flow reporting. It's kind of like if anyone's ever got insurance, they take a blood panel and they look at your blood and go, okay, you can have a preferred rating for life insurance or a standard rating or a substandard rating. So the blood or the blood work of your finances is your cash flow reporting. And so we've seen mistakes people make where they have a donation, but they put it wrong on their taxes, so it looks like it was an expense, not a donation. Now, just by having that classified right means they have a better cash flow report, and it was the difference between getting denied a loan and actually getting a loan. So those are some of the things that can help you in the renegotiation process or restructuring, is having the right credit score, the right collateral, the right cash flow reporting, and the right connections. So the first thing in cash flow optimization is we're talking about restructuring loans on anything that's inefficient with your cash flow index. So anything less than 50, we really want to pay off, which we could do with the second step, reallocation. So imagine if you walk into any bank or institution, like a credit union, a bank, you're going to see multiple signs. My favorite one is, hey, we're charging 5% for a mortgage. That's one of the signs. But then you look on the other side and the sign is, hey, we're paying 1% for a 5-year CD. Okay, so they're giving you 1% to rent your money, and they're selling it for 5%. That's a 500% markup. If you could buy this bottle right here of water for $1, and sell it for $5, that's a 500% markup. And that's what happens to our money. The bank is renting the money, and then they turn around and rent it out to someone else. So what if instead of having an account that's earning 2% or 3% or 4%, where you're just not getting a lot, and yet you have a 6% interest rate, what if you just cashed that out and paid off the loan? I call that reallocation. Reallocation is a guaranteed savings. It could boost your credit score. It could improve your cash flow and increase your peace of mind. Now, to break this down, I want to look at 3 categories. The first one we've already talked about, the cash flow index. It's what you're paying to an institution and whether it's efficient or not. If it's over 100, it's pretty efficient. If it's less than 50, it's inefficient. And if it's in the 50 to 100, it's danger zone, maybe a restructure like we're talking about. But the second thing to look at is what I would call your investment index. This helps you understand how good you are at creating cash flow from your investments. I'm here to tell you, banks are fantastic at creating cash flow from your money, right? You borrow, they create great cash flow from that. Now, investment indexes, what if I put $100,000 into an investment and it kicks off $1,000 a year? That's a very, very terrible investment index because I'm taking the investment and dividing it by the interest that comes in. So we want our investment index to be the opposite of our cash flow index. Our cash flow index is, we want it to be high because we want to have the least amount of outgoing cash for the money that we borrowed. Our investment index is we want to have the most incoming cash for the investment we've made. So if what you find is you have really low cash flow indexes of 50 or less and really high investment indexes of 100 or more, you're better off reallocating and paying off loans. It will improve your cash flow more and increase peace of mind, and it's a guaranteed savings. So the third thing, what if you've made an investment in the past and now it's appreciated substantially? And the cash flow didn't appreciate, but the value of the investment. The third index I want you to look at is called the optimization index. The optimization index is take the value of the investment today, not what you put into it, and divide it by your income that comes in, right? So what's that monthly income? Whatever that number comes out to be is your optimization index, which might mean at one time it was good for growing in value, but not good for cash flow. And you may want to take your gains and invest it somewhere that creates more cash flow, therefore helping optimize your cash flow from an investment standpoint. So we got cash flow index when you borrow, investment index, which is the original amount that you put in, and optimization index, which is the total amount invested, including your gains. What I want to see is in cash flow index above 100, investment index below 100, and optimization index below 100. This gives you a sense of whether you should reallocate funds to pay off loans or keep them invested. Now, the third thing in cash flow optimization is renegotiation. Most loans are negotiable. So if you have a really high interest rate credit card, but you've been paying on time, you've got a credit score of 760 or above, and use some of the tactics and techniques that we shared, and go ahead and click the links to get some of the additional support and resources so you have worksheets and understand what we're talking about here to improve your life, or even be able to tap into the specialists at Wealth Factory to help you out to navigate this, because they're just nerds for this and they're so good at it. It's nice to have the confidence of knowing someone's guiding you through this process. So when we're looking at the third part of renegotiating interest rates, credit cards are one of the easier ones to renegotiate. I remember one time I was moving houses, and when I was moving, I called the cancel cable, and I called to cancel certain utilities. And what happened was they said, well, what if we could get you a better price? Now, I wasn't looking for a better price at the moment, although I was like, when I move, I guess I could use this better price. They just put me to the retention department, and they started to throw additional things at me. And I went from a $170 bill to a $100 bill by the end of that, simply because they wanted to keep me as a customer, because it's really expensive to acquire a customer. So I thought, what if I tried this with my credit cards? And I did have one really high interest rate credit card. I didn't have a big balance on it, but I was like, why don't I just call them and say, hey, I'm looking to cancel this credit card. I just think the interest rate's too high. They moved me to the retention department, and by the end of that call, we shaved off 6% of the interest. Still a good deal for them, a much better deal for me, but I had to say I was looking to cancel or balance transfer because the first person I talked to didn't have the authority to help me, but the retention department did. So this happens with oftentimes, credit cards or even food services. I canceled the subscription recently. They're like, what if we gave you 10% off? So a lot of times they just want to retain that business. So renegotiating interest rates is very, very helpful. The credit cards is the easiest, but let me give you another example. We had this guy, Jason, out of Reno. And Jason had a great credit score. He had been making his payment on his house on time for a long period of time, but interest rates had changed from the time that he bought the home 6 years prior. So I said, why don't you call your existing lender and say you're looking to refinance, but before you do, you want to give him a chance. And he got something called a streamline refinance, where they lowered his interest rate without doing full closing costs. So a lot of times if you're like, I refinanced a home a couple years ago, it was $13,000 in all the title fees and title insurance, right? And the brokerage fees, like for the mortgage broker and all that kind of stuff. All the closing costs were $13,000. It saved me $1,000 a month. So I said, I have to be here for at least 13 months to break even, and after that, it's kind of benefiting me. But that's onerous, it's painful. I tried to do what Jason did. Jason just called Chase, and they ended up lowering his interest rate with $200 of closing costs, which was for a drive-by appraisal rather than a full appraisal. And because he had longer-term customer and had good equity in the house, they just lowered his interest rate because they knew otherwise he'd refinance and they'd lose that loan. So streamline refinance, renegotiating interest rates, these are some of the keys to cash flow optimization. Restructure your loans, reallocate your funds, or renegotiate your interest rates, and what ends up happening is you're going to shave the time it takes to pay off these things without a huge amount of effort. I'll conclude in this story. I was in Minneapolis, and I remember this really well, even though it's quite a while ago, because I just left Cancun, where I was speaking to a group of dentists, and now I was going to Minneapolis to speak to a group of chiropractors. It was negative 22 degrees. Negative 22. Pretty cold. I had gone from 82 degrees to negative 22 degrees. Quite the change. I had sand in my bag from Cancun that was frozen by the time I got into Minneapolis, okay? I remember it because it's all people are talking about. I saw the first person in my life that their whole job was to start cars where everything was basically frozen. And as I was getting up to speak, this person raised their hand 30 seconds into my talk. The first thing I'll admit, the first thing I did is I checked my zipper. Like, did I not check the zipper? I just didn't want to have my zipper down. That was fine. I was like, well, and they just kept their hand raised, and so finally, like a couple minutes of talk, I'm like, yes. And they stood up and they go, I'm a CPA. I was like, oh, this is really stern. I'm not sure what's going on. They're like, and you told my husband, who's a chiropractor, that our debt plan, which was 9 months, or 9 years, 9 months, and 6 minutes until we'd be out of debt. Like, they were so precise with what it was that you could shave that time off by up to a third. So it would be more like 6 years. And I'm here to tell you that didn't happen. So I'm like, oh, damn, I want to go out in the negative 22 degree weather. What a horrible way to start the talk. She goes, as a matter of fact, it's only going to take us 39 months to get there. I was like, oh, this is good news. Great. Tell us all about it. And it's like, well, we reallocated, which was one of the things I hadn't accounted for, because they had a non-performing CD, which to cash that out, that certificate of deposit, there was a penalty. But the penalty was only forfeiting 3 months interest. So it still shaved off years of time versus what they would have earned versus what they saved with that very, very small penalty. They then restructured and renegotiated everything else, and the renegotiating of interest rates, I wasn't sure how much they'd be able to do. It ended up turning out really good because they were really responsible, and they went from 9 years, 9 months to 39 months. Reallocation, renegotiation, and restructuring. And the good news is, for that 39 months, rather than just pay extra to the bank because they were trying to get rid of their mortgage, we put it into a system called cashflow banking. You can click below and learn more, where they were actually able to capture an interest rate over that 39 months equal to what they were paying on their mortgage with more benefits, plenty of liquidity, and then they could just take that money 39 months later and pay it all off all at once, maximizing their tax savings and their security. So cash flow optimization is an absolute game changer for your finances. We've seen it be $2,484 per month for every $250,000 to $500,000 revenue, the people in that range per month by using this strategy, including some other things Wealth Factory can do with tax savings and insurance savings and non-performing fees with investments. So click the link, get to know us better. Hopefully this inspires you to stop giving extra money to the institutions and putting it back into your life and your family. And here's the deal. If you click the link, just make one deal with me. Whatever money you save, the first month's savings goes into buying something for yourself. Something you wouldn't normally buy. Like, now that I'm going full hippie with the hair, I bought a bracelet for me recently. A bracelet, like, what is going on with me? I now have bracelets? Like, what? Am I going to start just, I'm already wearing shirts that look, I don't know what's happening. I mean, I'm the hippie finance guy. The money Jesus, if you will. I didn't give myself that name. Someone else did. But the bottom line is, I'm not here to save anything other than your money. I want to save that money, put it in your life, and make sure that you save some time for yourself and invest in some quality life along the way. I know that's not advice you'd normally hear from a financial person, but what's going to happen is when you treat yourself like the greatest asset, not a stock, not a bond, not a piece of real estate, I think you'll like what you see. I think you'll like your life a whole lot more. And this magical thing will happen called you'll start making more money because you made time and money for yourself. All right, cash flow optimize and optimize your life at the same time. Remember, make fun of yourself, your hair, your bracelets, whatever it may be, the gray in your beard, because I remember being the young guy, and now my kids remind me of just how old I am. And my 17-year-old is 2.5 inches taller than me. 2.5 inches taller. I don't like to wrestle with him anymore. I'm losing my old man strength. I hurt my back. I was laid up in bed for 36 hours. All I do is give him more information to make fun of me for. But the good news is I've optimized my cash flow, and I can go up to my cabin that I bought with all the cash flow optimization savings and have some time to myself. You deserve some time to yourself because I'm tired of being tortured by my kids. I love them 96% of the time. If you love your kids more than that, you're lying. 96% of the time. 4% of the time, I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if I can handle it, but I'm somehow getting through. The good news is my life's more stable than me, but I'm really good at stabilizing finances, and that's why I'm here with you. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Don't miss out on a single Wealth Factory tip, like this next one, brimming with ways to build your wealth.